The arrival. There are silences in this world that do not belong to absence. They are not the hush of midnight or the pause between sentences. They are not the stillness found in empty rooms nor the calm before a storm. These silences are alive, ancient things that breathe through the seams of reality. They hang in the air like secrets unsaid for centuries. They press softly against your skin on certain nights, like a memory forgotten not by time, but by design. These are the silences that existed before the first word was spoken, before light was divided from dark, before the notion of here and there had even formed. To encounter such a silence is not merely to experience quiet, but to stand at the edge of existence's blind spot, where all things lost, forbidden, or unspeakable gather like dust behind the veil. The town of Elbridge was one such place where these silences were not rare. They were woven into the soil, steeped into the rainwater, laced between the rafters of every home and the mortar of the chapel stones. Even the dogs in Elbridge did not bark after sunset. Even the wind took care not to linger too long between the sycamores. It was the kind of place that forgot how to be remembered. The kind of place that if it disappeared, the maps would not change and the stars would not mourn. The children of Elbridge, when they were young enough not to have their minds scrubbed clean by logic, would speak of the bends in the air, the places where time blinked, the faces they saw in the fields, grinning with no mouths. Parents would hush them quickly, pressing fingers to their lips, eyes darting toward the woods. Old wives still circled iron nails around their windows and buried quartz under the floorboards. Everyone in Elbridge pretended not to believe in the strange, but no one dared say it wasn't real. And it was here, beneath a sky thick with ash-colored clouds and a moon that hung too low, swollen like a bruised eye, that Micah Lorne, 11 years old and already steeped in the peculiar ache of the uncanny, first heard the sound. It was not a noise that belonged to Earth, not the rustling of corn stalks, nor the hum of distant power lines, nor even the occasional shudder of the railway far behind the hills. No. This was a sound that came before all of those things. A sound that felt like it had traveled too far, over too many broken dimensions, across too much cosmic grief, to arrive here, on this night, in this town, for this boy. It buzzed and throbbed and folded into his chest, not painfully, but intimately, as though some buried part of him had been struck like a tuning fork. Micah stopped walking. He tilted his head toward the tree line, and in that moment, standing barefoot in the dew-soaked grass, he felt a wordless truth begin to uncoil inside him. A truth that smelled like ozone, tasted like copper, and hummed with this soft electric terror of awakening. It was not thunder. It was not wind. It was the sound before the sky. And it had come for him. Micah did not fit. Not at home, where silence echoed louder than conversation. Not at school, where the other boys carved names into dust but not into memory. He lived in the in-between, too young for answers, too old to ignore the questions. He found his refuge in walking, especially at dusk. The twilight in Elbridge was thick enough to fold in the scent of the fields. Hay, wheatgrass, something faintly metallic, gave him the illusion of freedom. But on this seventh night of the lunar inversion, a celestial event that villagers only mentioned in hushed superstition, Micah ventured further than usual. Past the boundary stone covered in red lichen, past the scarecrow with button eyes that blinked when no one looked, past the place where even the crickets went quiet. That's where he saw it. At the bend in the field, where the cornstalks bowed inward like penitents, reality shifted. A glimmer, a ripple, a fracture in the air itself, as if the world had exhaled wrong. What he saw could not be described in the language of the waking world. It was light, but not light. Shape, but not form. A suggestion, a presence, hanging suspended like an idea waiting to be born. His body screamed to flee, but something deeper, older, stepped forward. He would later tell himself he had no choice. He was already a part of it. It did not emerge so much as become visible. At first glance, it appeared to be a coalescence of shimmer, liquid metal folding in on itself in patterns both chaotic and precise. There were no features, no eyes, no mouth. And yet, in its formlessness, Micah felt watched. It moved without moving, rippling against the world like a stone dropped into the fabric of reality. Micah whispered, "What are you?" The being responded, not with sound, but with an invasion of imagery. Visions that poured into his mind like melted silver. A star breaking open like a wound in space. A ship not made of metal, but of memory. A network of sentient energy that had forgotten itself. Loneliness that spanned centuries. Micah stumbled back, breath hitching. His heart raced, not from fear, but from something deeper, recognition. As if he had seen this being before, in dreams he wasn't allowed to remember. The entity pulsed, not threatening, not pleading, just present. A question without a voice. A wound that had wandered too far from home. In the nights that followed, Micah returned. He told no one, not his mother, who folded into grief after his father vanished 5 years ago, not his teachers, who already suspected his imagination was a problem to be medicated. Each visit, the being was there, waiting. Not in the same place, not in the same form, but always there. And each time, it showed him. It showed him entire worlds where cities were made of thought, and time bent like glass underwater. He saw creatures with translucent skin whispering dreams into the ears of sleeping children. He saw war, not of weapons, but of memory, where forgetting was the greatest weapon of all. Micah was changing. He began to dream in languages that didn't exist. He began to draw maps he had no way of knowing. He felt the cracks inside of himself widening, but not in a broken way, in a way that let the light leak in. He named the being Soul, not because it reminded him of the sun, but because it reminded him of the loneliness of stars. The price of knowing is always paid in parts of the self. Micah began to feel things, detaching. His reflection lingered longer in the mirror than it should have. Words lost their edges. His own name felt foreign in his mouth. He began speaking truths he didn't understand. The sky is a bruise from a forgotten war. Time is a hallway with mirrors that lie. Not all things that shimmer are meant to be seen. They sent him to a specialist, then to a clinic, then to a place where children forget what they used to believe. But even inside that sterile quiet, he knew one thing. He was not sick. He was becoming. Soul had not chosen him by mistake. There was a thread, ancient and golden, that bound their fates together across planes. He didn't fully understand it, but he trusted it. Like a moth trusts the flame, even as it burns. On the 21st night, under a sky smeared with auroras that didn't belong, Soul began to dissolve. It was not dying. It was going home. Its light dimmed, its edges blurred. But before leaving, it pressed something into Micah. Not physically, but psychically. A final vision, a message, a seed. He felt it blossom inside him like a second heart. You are more than your story. You are a threshold being. Others will come. Teach them to listen. And then, like the last note of a sacred song, Saul vanished. Not into the sky, but into him. The wind returned. The field lay quiet. But the boy who stood there was no longer just a boy. He was a doorway now. Micah grew, but not in the way others did. He did not outgrow his childhood. He grew through it, like a root system moving downward into silence, deeper into the bedrock of what it means to remember something you've never been told. He aged in body, yes, but behind his eyes was a slowness, a sacred hesitation, as though time moved differently inside him. Some days, he spoke as though carrying entire centuries in his chest. And other days, he simply watched the sky, unmoving, as if waiting for it to blink. He never married, never chased titles. Instead, he wandered, not aimlessly, but attuned, to places where the veil had thinned, where stories bled into stone, where forgotten things gathered like dust in the corners of the world. Children were drawn to him inexplicably. They would sit near his porch in the evenings, listening not to bedtime stories, but to doorways disguised as tales. Their language is not spoken, only felt. There are beings who navigate not by stars, but by the ache in lonely hearts. And there are keys, invisible and warm, hidden in the minds of those who refuse to forget the impossible. They called him the Star Listener, the Silence Keeper, the Walker who knows. But Micah had long since shed names. What he carried now was function, not identity. Not a man, not a myth, but a lighthouse for the lost. And sometimes, just sometimes, on the edge of storms or in the long breath between lightning and thunder, those who watch closely might see something else in the field behind his house. Not Saul, not again, but others. Fragments of forgotten galaxies, trailing starlight like veils in water. Curious travelers, displaced dreamers, echoes seeking resonance. And Micah, older now, but impossibly intact, would rise from his seat without a word. He would walk barefoot across the blackened earth, his heart a compass, his breath a song. And as he stood before each new arrival, beings without language, without shape, he would offer not fear, not pity, but the one gift the universe rarely gives: recognition. You are not broken. You are not wrong. You are simply far from home, but you are seen. Then he would guide them, sometimes with silence, sometimes with story, back to the place behind places, the place Soul once showed him, where thought becomes form and belonging is not earned, but remembered. So if one night the sky fractures softly at the corner of your vision, if the wind begins speaking in patterns that make your skin prickle, and if a young boy, or perhaps an old man, smiles at you from across an empty field, do not run. Do not scream. Do not forget. You are not hallucinating. You are not dreaming. You are arriving, and he has been waiting for you.